Good morning, baseball fans. It is Monday morning, 10 a.m., time for Around the State. I am Deep South Supervisor David Sharp, along with our Alabama Scouting Director for Prep Baseball, Austin Sharp. This is Around the State. Episode 8. Yep, that is correct. Episode 8. And, man, it seems like, you wait all year and get to the weeks, and they seem like they fly by. Last week was a really busy week. We were at various spots throughout the state. This week is sort of still to be determined. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. A lot of where I am in North Alabama, a lot of the school districts up here are away for spring break. I know that spring break's a little bit later for some other districts across the state, but we are still finalizing our schedule for this week, man. But we are pumped to be on, as always. Austin Sharp. Man, how are things going?
Going well. But we both made it out to some games last week, and both made trips to Birmingham and had people down. I think it was Thursday. It seemed like we had people everywhere. We were both in the Birmingham area. Had coverage going on down in Troy, Mobile throughout the week, and up in Huntsville as well. So a busy week getting out and seeing games.
Because of that, that scout blog is jam-packed with players, right, Austin?
Right. I've even seen some people, some people, like you said, are on spring break, summer. I've even seen some people saying they're starting an area series next week. And that's not the case for most. They've still got a few weeks. But I think the first week of the Gulf Coast Classic is this week. Got some teams from Alabama going down, and going to be excited to follow another week of baseball. And before we get into the next week of baseball, we'll go ahead and get into these rankings here in just a few minutes.
You mentioned that Gulf Coast Classic. I'm sitting here on my phone right now following two 9 a.m. games with Alabama teams. University School out of Tennessee currently leads Bob Jones 6-3 in the top of the fourth, and Madison County. In a matchup of two Alabama teams, Madison County is leading Arab 5-3 in the top of the fourth. So there'll be a lot of game changer watching this week on the Gulf Coast Classic game. So, that's some live updates right there from Game Changer, what's going on down there. But, Austin, take us through the next couple things, as you mentioned, leading us into our weekly rankings. That's the big thing that people are on here for. We understand that.
So we'll kind of try to zoom through these next few topics here. As always, as we discuss weekly, if you want your latest prep baseball merch, visit shop.prepbaseball.com. I think that sweatshirt you got on is on the website. They've got a ton of stuff, tons of sweatshirts, t-shirts, hats, beanies, anything you can think of. There's a good collection of stuff on there, and they're going to continue to add some stuff. They've got a pretty sweet St. Patrick's Day green shirt that's still up there. Hope to see some I've seen a few people wearing some prep baseball merch at games that I've been to this spring, and hope to continue to see that throughout the course of the spring. Probably one of the behind the polls, the biggest item on the agenda. Yesterday we released we announced the Yellowhammer State games 2 or 3 weeks ago. But yesterday we rolled out the full summer schedule for our events. Similar to last year, it's going to be the similar format to last year. Our Summer ID and Summer Rising Star series stays the same. And then, like I mentioned, the Yellowhammer State games is sort of the pinnacle of our summer, the only invite-only event of the summer. I think we're up to all of these events will serve as identifiers for the future games, the senior future games, the future games, and the junior future games. But I think last year, the Yellowhammer State games had over 25 players selected to Team Alabama. And for those who don't know, the future games, you can see it down there on the bottom right, July 22nd through the 27th. That is the best of the best that bring over a team of uncommitted, going to be seniors, a team of uncommitted bring over a team of uncommitted 2026s, a team of uncommitted 2027s, and then a junior future games team. and compete as Team Alabama against other states who bring over their team as well, and kind of compete for a pride thing. But also, I think we eclipsed the 400. What number was it last year?
It was like 381 or something. I was close to 400. Yeah, I mean, 400.
Anybody,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's easy to say that. All the college coaches there. If you haven't been to it, you're probably like, oh yeah, okay. But for the people who have been, they can probably attest that it creates a really cool environment. Coaches right on top of you watching your games. So it's definitely the place to be at the end of the summer.
And when you say coaches, I mean, when you say coaches, you mean from UCLA, from Oregon, from Pittsburgh, from St. John's. I mean, they're from everywhere across the country. It's crazy. It can be a daunting task for a young guy to play in front of that, but that's what you're striving to do. No doubt about it.
Yeah. So all of those events, summer IDs, the Rising Stars, the Yellowhammer State games will serve as identifiers for the future games. As you can see, we'll run through it briefly there. Mobile, and we'll do a summer ID and a summer Rising Star event on the same day at the same location. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's say what those are. The summer IDs are designed for the older kids, the 26s through the 28s. And then the rising, what's that?
29s.
Yeah, 29s and 30s. And we would even take some 31s if you want to just start getting your profile started there for the Rising Stars. So those are the reason why there's two of them is one of them's for the older kids and another one is for the younger kids.
Yeah. So like I said, we'll start. We'll have a summer ID and a Rising Stars on the same day, kind of be able to piggyback and kill two birds with one stone. We'll start off in Mobile on June 3rd. We'll have the summer ID and Mobile summer ID and Mobile Rising Star ID at Orange Beach Sportsplex in Orange Beach, Alabama. For those who came to the South Alabama preseason All-State, can attest to how great of a venue that is. The next week on June 10th, we're headed to Holtville High School, newly renovated, new artificial turf. Going to be hosting our Montgomery Summer ID and Montgomery Rising Stars ID. And then obviously the next week, June 17th and 18th, we've touched on it, the Yellowhammer State games, the only invite-only event of the summer, and taking the top prospects in the 2026 through 2029 classes. It's a 2-day event, showcase on the first day, games that night on the first day, and then another game on the 18th. Request your invite if you're interested in heading to Sand Mountain Park. Registrations are already pouring in there. We're already over 25. Last year we had 171 players. We had 12 teams last year. We're adding 2 teams this year to get to 14 teams. So we'll be in the neighborhood of 200 players this year. So, and it will sell out as it did last year. So if you've gotten an invite, I would, register whenever it's convenient for you. Go ahead, Austin. Then the next week on June 24th, we're headed to James Clemens High School in Madison, Alabama to run the Huntsville Summer ID and the Huntsville Rising Stars ID. The next Tuesday, July 1st, we'll be headed to Pelham High School for the Birmingham Summer ID and Birmingham Rising Stars ID. And then the next Tuesday, July 8th, will be the Tuscaloosa Summer ID and Tuscaloosa Rising Stars ID. Got to fix that on the graphic. That'll be at Northridge High School, like I said, on July 8th. And then the next week on Wednesday, we'll be having the Dothan Summer ID and the Dothan Rising Stars ID. That's a first-time event. We've toyed with the idea over the past couple of years of going down to that Dothan area. And this year we're following through with it. And that's going to be on July 16th at Wallace Dothan Community College. Obviously one of the top JUCO powers in the state of Alabama and in the Deep South. So, and then the next event obviously is the Future Games, July 22nd through the 27th at Lake Point Sports, and that's a whole range of players that we're taking from uncommitted rising seniors to 2029s and 2030s on our JFG team. Is that right? Is that the JFG years? JFG is 2029, yeah, and Future Games is 2027. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And then
seniors are
the
2026.
seniors are 2026 grads. That's correct. Yes. It gets
So,
confusing for us, man. I can't believe we're talking about 2029s and 2030s. That's crazy. Yeah.
So and one thing I don't know if we failed to mention, but the summer IDs and Rising Stars IDs, those are all open events. You do not need an invite to register for that, so you're able to go right now if you want to register for it. Like he said, the Yellowhammer State Games is the only invite only event of the calendar. We kind of keep that to a select. We've sent out a wave of invites to start a couple days ago, and we'll continue to add invites based on numbers and positional needs because we're building teams as well. But like you said, if you have an invite to the Yellowhammer State Games, I would not sit on it. It's going to sell out quick. We were surprised. Last year we were surprised. We don't want to say we were taking. We took a lot of registrations early on, and it kind of, as the Yellowhammer State Games got close, we were kind of, our hands were tied with how many players we had signed up, and there were some people who were wanting to get in a few weeks out of the event, but we just didn't have enough room. So expect that to be the case once again this year with the Yellowhammer State Games. It's going to be a high-level event. Looking forward to it. And have an invite, don't sit on it.
And I want to say one thing real quick, and this question comes up every year, okay? Yes, the Yellowhammer State Games, that is our premier event of the year. We'll have more college coaches there than we do anywhere else. We had over 30 last year. I'm sure we have more this year. But I do want to let you know that every event that we run this summer will be an identifier for, as what Austin mentioned, the senior future games, the future games, and the junior future games. So we did this throughout the state so that if you do have a conflict and you want to come to the Yellowhammer State Games and you just can't, well, then there's always the other options around the state to come and get identified. Now, I think it bears repeating. The Yellowhammer State Games is the pinnacle of events for the state of Alabama. But because you can't come there, and let's say that you go to the Huntsville Summer ID or the Dothan Summer ID, you can earn an invite to one of those future games teams by going to a summer ID. The junior future game guys, the 2029s that are wanting to go over and represent Alabama, at any Rising Stars, you can come and get evaluated there. So, and another thing, and this is the last thing, and I'll turn it back over to you, Austin. This has become, the future games has become such a hard ticket. Maybe that's the wrong word. It's become hard for people to get an invite. I mean, we can only select a certain number for each team. And let's be honest, it's usually the best talent in the state for those three teams that are available. Okay. And so, it's hard to get there. But I say all this because in order to be fair with everyone, a player that's going to the future games or senior future games or junior future games must attend an event in the summer to be evaluated. We don't think it's fair that we take a kid that did not go to a summer event and turn down a kid that went to a summer event. It's not fair to those people that came to a summer event. So again, just to rehash, players do need to be identified at an event this summer. So Austin, I'll shoot it back to you.
That was the case last year. Every player we took over to the future games, senior future games, junior future games, they'd all come to event in the summer. So that's our summer schedule. If you want more information, head over to our website. It should be pretty easy to find the full schedule under the showcase tab. And if you're interested in registering, I wouldn't wait. So that's our summer schedule. It's going to be here before we know it. We'll go ahead and get into a few commitments. On the commitment corner this week, we've got 4. Starting it off, a future gamer off the board from this past summer, third baseman, right-handed pitcher Aaron Bailey from McAdory. He committed to Pearl River, a perennial power in the country, it seems like, at the JUCO level. John Luke Stevens is a shortstop right-handed pitcher from Gulf Shores, another 2026 who we saw in the second week of the season at the South Alabama Showdown. He committed to Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. Right-handed pitcher Colton Shields is a 2025 from Hoax Bluff. He committed to Gadsden State Community College. And then rounding it out, shortstop right-handed pitcher Hayden Jones from Elmore County, another 2025. He committed to Bishop State. So congrats to all 4 of those. You have Aaron Bailey to Pearl River, John Luke Stevens to Mississippi Gulf Coast, Colton Shields to Gadsden State, and Hayden Jones to Bishop State. So congrats to all 4 of those.
And before you get started with the classification polls, I'm going to throw a quick pub out there, little publicity for All Things Baseball podcast. Austin and I will be filming, or we'll be recording. We're jumping on their podcast this afternoon. We're thankful that they invited us. So if you want to hear some more about prep baseball in Alabama and just baseball in general, I don't know when it's going to be released. It's going to be recorded later this afternoon. We're jumping on with those guys, All Things Baseball podcast. So if you want to hear some more, you can follow them on YouTube, and they're on Twitter as well. So if you, again, just throwing that out there for them, we appreciate them having us on. So Austin, you want to get us cranked up 1A? You want me to do it? Doesn't matter to me.
I'll get us started in 1A like we do each week. Let me get it pulled up right here. We have 2 number 1s this week in the classification polls, but it stays the same in 1A. There we go. At number 1, like I said, Hackleburg stays at the top. Not much movement in the. Obviously, you can see that one little adjustment made in 1A at number 2 and number 3. But pretty status quo throughout the week in 1A. Staying at number 10 is Brantley, who went 1-0 on the week. Billingsley is 7-3 after going 2-2 on the week. They sit at 7-3. Lynn went a perfect 3-0, pushed their record to 9-1. They stay at number 8. Fayetteville comes in at number 7. They stay at number 7 after going 3-2. And I think one of their losses I know was to Buckhorn. I forget what the other one was too, but they played some higher classification competition. So Fayetteville stays at number 7 at 8-4. At number 6 is Sweetwater. Sweetwater went a perfect 3-0 this past week. They pushed their record to 7-3, as is Millery, who's also 7-3. They stay put at number 5 and went a perfect 2-0 on the week. At number 4 is Leroy, who has had a really, really strong start to the season. I think they started off at number 9. They've quickly made their way up to number 4 thanks to a 9-0 record. They went 2-0 this past week. At number 3 is Florala, sliding down 1 spot. They went 1-1 on the week and sit at 6-3, moving up 1 spot. The lone adjustment of the week in Class 1A is Appalachian, moving up from number 3 to number 2. They went 4-0 on the week, pushing their record to 11-1. And then staying at the top spot is Hackleburg. Hackleburg went 1-2 on the week. But I think one of those losses was to Deschler. Forget what the other one was too. But they like Fayetteville, their losses have been to higher classification competition. So no need to punish them as we look at who these teams have played, the strength of schedule, all that stuff comes into play when doing these rankings. So Hackleburg stays at number 1. They sit at 8-2. Looking at some teams just outside the top 10 in Class 1A. Starting off, you have Addison, who's 7-6. I think they have an impressive head-to-head win over Lynn, but they're just outside the top 10 in this week's update. Athens Bible is 4-2. Coosa Christian, I think Coosa Christian started off 0-4, and then went 1-6. They're now back up to 5-6. So they seem to turn things around, and I know they made a deep playoff run last year. Looked to be playing some better baseball now. Eider continues a strong start to the season. They're 8-2. And Jacksonville Christian is 5-0. And then rounding it out, University Charter sits at 4-5.
And that'll move us to 2A. And as we always say every week, we do take pride in these rankings. We do spend our time trying to look at who people play, who they lost to. So, again, it's not just looking at an overall win-loss record. We've said that numerous times. But as you can see in 2A, man, we've only got 1 new team. But, man, we've got some shuffling going on there, and it's just some slight adjustments here or there. And it gets more and more difficult every week because, trying to take into consideration who people play and who they beat and, who threw. But there, as I said, there is a little bit of a shakeup in 2A. Again, only 1 new team. We've got a new number 1. We'll get to that in just a second. Dropping a spot this week after going 2-2. St. Luke's Episcopal, they come in with a record of 6-4, and again, hold down that number 10 spot. The lone new team this week is Red Bay. They come in at number 9. I know our man Adam McGee is going to be pumped about that. And I tell you, Red Bay's another team I think that started slow. They're now trending in the right direction. I believe they started off 0-2. They're now 6-3, won 6 of their last 7, including a win over 5A Deschler, which was really, really impressive. So they come in at number 9. At number 8, Reeltown jumps up from number 10 after going 2-0 on the week. They sit at 6-2. Mars Hill drops from 3 to 7, but again, don't put too much into that, and don't put too much into that record. Mars Hill is 3-6. They did go 0-3 this week, and I know 2 of those losses came to Russellville in very close games. I think the third one was another quality loss. So we didn't want to punish Mars Hill simply because of the schedule they played, but they do drop to number 7, and we do anticipate Mars Hill being around a while in the state playoffs. Moving up a spot, Decatur Heritage. Again, we talked about them just really getting started of late, welcoming some basketball players back. Mars Hill's in the same boat there. Decatur Heritage went 3-1 last week. They sit at 6-1. Pike Liberal Arts, they drop a spot from 4 to 5. Last week, they went 1-2. I forget the schools they played, but
they beat Providence Christian. They lost to Robertsdale, and I forget the other loss.
But again, that 6-7 record is because of the quality of competition they're playing. Summerton Christian, they move up a couple spots to number 4 after going 2-0. They sit at 6-5. They are the defending 1A state champs, again, making this is their first year in 2A. At number 3, GW Long, they went 2-1. They sit at 6-3. And that you look at number 3 and number 4. GW Long is at 3, Summerton Christian's at 4. They played earlier in the year in a great game. What I heard was possibly the game of the small town showdown. I think it was a 2-1 final. GW Long squeezed in the winning run to win, I think 2-1 or 3-2 is a 1-run game. So the Rebels, obviously they are a top 10 juggernaut. It'd be hard to have a top 10 in 2A without GW Long, it seems, every year. But they sit at 6-3. This week we did swap Ayrton and Vincent. Ayrton was number 1. They dropped to number 2. They went 4-2 this week. They went 4-2 this week. They currently, they went 1-2. I apologize. They went 1-2. They sit at 8-2, a really impressive record. Again, dropping them to number 2 is nothing. That's not a shot at Ayrton. It's just looking at Vincent having an impressive 3-0 week and sitting at 11-2. We just thought that, right now they need to be number 1. And again, that's a pretty, 2A, man, that's 10 good teams that are in there. And again, a lot of those teams are preparing themselves by playing larger schools. So that's why some of the records are as they are. Let's look at some of the teams outside of the top 10. The school that fell out was Bayshore Christian. They are at 2-9, and we feel like that Bayshore Christian is a top 10 caliber team. There's no doubt about that. We can last year they got hot in state finals or state playoffs, made a run, and we can see that happening again there. But they do sit at 2-9. Bell Green is at 5-3. Cedar Bluff comes in with an impressive 11-2 record. Cottonwood is at 8-3. Donahoe is at 3-2. And while I'm talking about Donahoe, let me bring this up real quick. We hope that these records are spot on. The ones that we get from Game Changer, we feel very good about. Some of them we've got to get through other avenues. So 1 or 2 of these records may be off a game or 2, but if so, please let us know. We'd love to make sure we get it right. Lindsay Lane, they are at 5-6. North Sand Mountain. And man, I'm going to tell you, North Sand Mountain had a lot of consideration, a ton of consideration for getting in that 9 or 10 spot this week. They fell just short, but that's a team that, they got off to a pretty bad start, I believe it was. But they are, North Sand Mountain is at 8-2 after starting the year 1-1. So not as bad as I thought it was, but they're at 8-2. I think they went 3-0 last week. Pleasant Valley's at 8-4. And the last team to keep an eye on right outside the top 10 is Susan Moore. They come in with a record of 5-4. So that'll do us for 2A.
Moving along to Class 3A, we have one new team making their way into the top 10 this week, and that's number 10, Winfield, who sits at 11-4. This past week, they went 4-1 on the week. Like I said, they're 11-4. I know one of those losses was to Bob Jones. I think it was an 8-5 score. They played some good competition, beaten some good competition, and have been rewarded for their strong play in the early part of the season. They come in at number 10 this week. Moving up a spot this week is TR Miller. TR Miller went 2-1 on the week and pushed their record to 6-4. I know they played down in the is it the Terry Sykes?
Yeah, Memorial Tournament.
Yep, Memorial Tournament down in Troy. Had a bunch of coverage down there. I know they got a big arm that we're hoping to see here in the future. They come in at number 9 this week. At number 8 is Collinsville, sliding down 3 spots. They went 1-1 on the week, and not as much as moving down 3 spots for what they did, but just the teams behind them had strong weeks. So Collinsville comes in at number 8. Know how strong they are. And number 7 is Thomasville. Thomasville went 1-0 on the week and pushed their record to 4-5. They come in at number 7. Sliding down 2 spots this week is Piedmont. Piedmont went 0-3 on the week, pushing their record to 4-4. But those 3 losses, they lost to Alexandria, I believe, in the county tournament, and then I think played North Cobb Christian and some, I think it was another team from Georgia. Yeah. So Piedmont is 4-4. They come in at number 6, making a big jump this week after making their debut last week. They've quickly made some noise in Class 3A. That's Thorsby. Thorsby jumps up from number 8 to number 5. They went 3-1 on the week, pushing their record to 12-3. Their one loss was to Vincent this past week, who they beat the week prior. And their other 2 losses are to Prattville Christian and St. James. So 3 quality losses. They've beaten some good teams as well. Obviously, sitting at 12-3, they've gotten off to a really good start. So Thorsby has made some noise in Class 3A. They move up to number 5 this week. Also sliding up 3 spots is Gordo. The Green Wave sit at 8-4 after a perfect 5-0 week. I've seen to. I guess they got that cooler in the dugout.
They got to. That's right.
They went 5-0 this past week. I think they figured something out. So they come at number 4 this week. And then the top 3 stay the same. St. James went 0-2 down at the Terry Sykes Memorial Tournament, but I think they played some quality competition. So they sit at 7-3. And number 2 is Glenwood. They went 4-0 and pushed their record to 9-3. And then Prattville Christian went 2-0, and they are still sitting at the top with a perfect record of 12-0. Those 1 and 2 spots are pretty interchangeable. We think those 2 teams and have a real chance to make some noise and be 2 of the main contenders when it comes down to the later rounds of the playoff. I think they'll both be in the South, if I'm not mistaken. So it'll definitely be a fun playoff matchup if and when those 2 teams meet up in the playoffs. So that's how it shapes out in Class 3A this week. Looking at some teams just outside the top 10 in Class 3A this week. Starting it off, you have Fife, who sits at 6-2. JB Pennington is 7-4. Lauderdale County was the lone team to drop out from last week's rankings. They sit at 4-7. Lee Scott Academy is 5-6. Montgomery Academy was probably, them and Winfield and maybe a couple other teams had a real chance. We're in that discussion of being that 10th team to make their way into the top 10. Ultimately, it was Winfield, but Montgomery Academy is just outside the top 10. They sit at 8-1. Oakman is 9-6. Phil Campbell is 8-3. Providence Christian is 3-7. Vinemont is another one of those teams who had a discussion to be inside the top 10. They sit at 11-3. Whitesburg Christian is 5-5, but we've both seen that team play, led by Luke Holbrook and a few other upperclassmen and Chase Utley. They sit at 5-5. We think they're going to be a tough out in Class 3A this year, and then rounding it out is Wicksburg. They come in with a 6-4 record.
So moving on to 4A. In 4A, we don't have a lot of movement. We got 1 new team and just a couple little slides here and there. That new team in 4A debuts at number 10. That's W.S. Neal. W.S. Neal went 4-0 on the week. They currently sit at 8-1. And, we talked about them last week about, maybe getting them in. Well, they proved us this week they belong in. So we finally got them in at number 10 with an 8-1 record. The Tigers of Madison County, they move up a spot after going 1-0 last week, getting off to a 1-0 start in their area. They're at 7-1, but as I mentioned, I'm sitting here currently tracking Game Changer games, and they are currently tied at 6-6 with Arab down at the Gulf Coast Classic 1. They're at 6-6. They're tied 6-6 with Arab in the 5th. So there's a good game going on there. Alexandria stays put. They went 1-2 on the week. Again, Austin mentioned that their county tournament that they were in this past weekend. Alexandria comes in at 9-4. Again, they won 5A last year, dropped down to 4A this year. Etowah stays the state. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Austin.
I didn't say anything.
I'm sorry. All right. Let's see. Back to number 7, Etowah. Etowah comes in at 7-8. They did go 1-3 this week, but they were down down at Troy. Played. I think they got beat by Oak Mountain.
Enterprise,
yeah, which we'll talk about Enterprise later as we get on 7A. But again, it would be really, really easy to just go through here and rank the teams with the best records. That would be the easy way out. But we're trying to find the best teams, and that's why you can't always just go by that record. So Etowah's at 7-8. Orange Beach stays put at number 6. They went 2-1 on the week and currently sit at 6-4. The Makos again come in at number 6. Opp stays put at number 5 after a 2-0 week to push their record to 9-1. Deschler, they drop a couple of spots. They went 1-2 on the week. We mentioned Red Bay beat them earlier, but again, we know
beat American Christian.
They beat, and I was about to say that, but I was going to say we know that Deschler is a really talented team with some solid frontline arms, and then they turn around and beat American Christian, who we've talked about how highly we think of American Christian is. So, you didn't want to punish Deschler too much for losing 2 games because they also had a big win on Saturday. But they are at number 4. Number 3, man, it seems like every year the Choctaws just, you think, man, this might be a little bit of a rebuilding year for them because they lose some players here, lose some players there. But I think that's just I think there's just winning in their DNA, and I think it's just a baseball program with some toughness, and all they do is they win. I mean, they're a lot like Central when we talk about 7A Central Phoenix City. Bibb County went 4-1 last week. They were also down at Troy. They currently
their one loss was 6-5 to Oak Mountain.
Yeah, a 1-run loss to 7A Oak Mountain. That's impressive. So Bibb County comes in at number 3 with a 10-3 record. Oak Grove jumps up from 3. Oak Grove jumps from 3 to 2 this week after going 3-0. They're at 10-1. I don't know if you just heard that ding for me on my computer, but that was Mizuno letting me know that they will be setting up a booth at our Yellowhammer State games this coming June. So that's awesome to know. So Oak Grove is at number 2 at 10-1, and then Westbrook Christian stays put at number 1. They went 2-1 last week, and their loss was to Enterprise, if I'm not mistaken. They had a quality loss down there. I forget who it was, but Enterprise is 2-1, and we hear the depth, and we're wanting to see them. What's that?
You said Enterprise went 2-1.
I'm sorry, Westbrook Christian went 2-1. I believe the lone loss was to Enterprise. I may be wrong, but they're at 10-1.
8-3.
Right. Yeah, 8-3 to Enterprise. And Enterprise is beating everybody they play, just so you know. That's it in 3A. The top 10. Outside the top 10, Bayside was the lone team to drop out. They're at 1-2. Again, similar to Bayshore. We do think that's a team that can be around in the end. But right now they just dropped right outside the top 10. They're at 5-7. Haleyville is at 7-6. Hanley is at 7-3. Munford, their record, they currently sit at 6-2. New Brockton, that's a team that really that was a team that we discussed getting in, just fell just short. New Brockton's at 7-2. The Indians of New Hope are at 6-3. Satsuma, the Gators, are at 9-2. Trinity Presbyterian sits at 4-5. Another team that, seem to have found their way, maybe moving in the right direction. A team to keep an eye on. And then Westminster Christians at 1-6. but we've mentioned this before, playing 6A and 7A teams after their Final Four run a year ago. So that's a team to keep your eye on in 4A as well. So we'll move on to 5A.
Yeah, that comment up there.
Let me see.
Alexandria's got some really good young. They've had a good start to the season.
And I'll say this about them. I think we may have. And listen, we're going to be wrong sometimes. We're going to be right sometimes. But I think we underestimated Alexandria at the beginning of this year because we knew they lost so much. But you know what? They've proven it. And you know where they proved it? It was on the field. And that's where you prove everything. So you're right about Alexandria. Go ahead, Austin. I apologize.
Moving on to Class 5A. We've got two new teams inside the top 10 this week. And starting off, those two teams come in at number 9 and number 10. Northside is off to a really strong start. They're 8-1. I think their only loss has been to Tuscaloosa County. They've beaten some really good teams as well in that Tuscaloosa area, led by Austin Keitlinger and a few other guys. So Northside comes in at number 10. At number 9 is Russellville, who was in the preseason top 10, ultimately fell out, but have really seemed to find their stride down the stretch. They went this past week. They went 2-1 and pushed their record to 9-4, and coming at number 9. And number 8 is Headland, sliding up one spot. They went a perfect 4-0 this week and pushed their record to 12-2. Headland is obviously led by Wade Shelley, but they've got we've talked about them, have a really strong group of younger players that have really seemed to show that they can play at the varsity level and have had some success. So Headland's gotten off to a good start at number 8. Sliding up one spot this week is Elmore County. Elmore County went 2-1 on the week, pushing their record to 9-4. Their one loss was to Central Phoenix City on Saturday. They lost 3-2, so very close to going 3-0. Ultimately, they go 2-1 and sit at 9-4, and sit at number 7 this week. And then the top got one change left in the top 6. Coming in and staying at number 6 this week after going 1-0 is Marbury. They pushed their record to 10-3. St. Paul's Episcopal, they went 2-0 and pushed their record to 7-5. And then the last change in the Class 5A rankings, we swapped Madison Academy and Faith Academy. Madison Academy goes up to number 3, Faith Academy to number 4. Both teams went undefeated. Faith Academy 7-2. They went 2-0 this week. Madison Academy went 3-0 and pushed a record to 10-2. But we just felt like the resume Madison Academy has continued to build. Beaten Bob Jones. They split with Vestavia Hills. Their other loss was to Coleman, and have beaten Huntsville. They've beaten a bunch of other really good teams. I think they've beaten Russellville 3 times, I think. Yep. So, and we just and nothing that obviously Faith Academy went 2-0. They're probably thinking, what do we have to do? But Madison Academy, just that resume that they've continued to build over the course of the first few weeks, just felt like we had to reward them. So they jump up to number 3. At number 2, with the top 2 staying the same, Springville went 3-0 this past week. I know you got to see one of their games against Moody in the middle of the week. They pushed their record to 10-1 and have a pretty big matchup coming up this week at Hewitt Trussville. That'll be one to follow. And then staying at the top spot is American Christian. American Christian kind of, I don't want to say they came back down to earth a little bit, but went 0-3 this past week. Got beat by Hillcrest in 2 games and then lost to Desher like we talked about. So still playing quality competition. Obviously, they got off to a 13-2 start playing that schedule. That's extremely impressive. They went 0-3 this past week, but they still sit at 13, an impressive 13-5 record. So could have swapped those 2 teams, but we talked about it. We still think American Christian has the high level talent, and we've seen them play, seen both of those teams play, and ultimately we sided with keeping American Christian at number 1 for this week. So we'll see how this rest of this week shapes out. I know American Christian is going to play. I think they go to, I don't know, I forget who they play early in this week, but they go to Chocolaco Park. this coming weekend and play, I think, Hartselle and Auburn, Oxford, Friday and Saturday, I think. So they're playing tough competition and expected to be rewarded with it in the playoffs. Looking at some teams just outside the top 10 this week, we have Boaz sitting at 9-4. Demopolis is 7-4. Alberta is 6-5. Had a big win over Central Phoenix City on Saturday. Holtville is 6-7. Lawrence County is 10-3. Leeds is 8-3. Lincoln is 9-5. Mobile Christian was one of those teams to drop out. They sit at 4-10. Moody is 9-4. Sardis is 5-5. Shelby County is 7-6. St. Clair County is 9-5. And then Valley is the other team to fall out. They sit at 12-2. So that'll round us out in Class 5A. I'll pass it back to you, and we'll go through Class 6A.
Gotcha. You want to throw any of those comments out there on?
Oh, I didn't see.
Yeah, there's some comments. Faith beat Pace and Pensacola Catholic. No slouches. Absolutely. Number 3 Mascot. I don't know what that means there, but going to earn respect. Listen, we've been wrong before, and not that we're wrong about Madison Academy, Faith Academy being at 3-4. That's 2 very good teams. There's not a lot of difference in them. That's again, we're very high on Faith Academy. There's no disrespect. I guess I can use that word. There's no disrespect shot at Faith there. We know they're very good. One of our scouts saw them this week, and it'll all play out as you mentioned. Got to earn on the field. That's right. It was Madison Central out of Mississippi. Thank you there, Jeremy.
Madison County has a pretty big win over Bob Jones a couple weeks ago.
And then beating Vestavia, who we think Vestavia may be one of the most talented rosters in the state. So again, both those teams very, very similar, no doubt about it. Might see them down the road, never know. And then that'll move us to 6A. In 6A, we do have a new number 1 team this week, but we do have the same teams within the top 10. We'll go ahead and get started here. The Patriots of Homewood, and I said this last week when doing 6A, man, you can throw these 10 teams along with some of the other teams right outside the top 10. You can throw them in a hat, and I believe that you can – it's going to be 50-50 win or lose. I truly, truly believe that. 6A is probably the deepest class in the state. Are there some teams outside the top 10 that probably deserve to be ranked? Maybe. But we also think that the 10 teams in there have done enough to stay in there. So looking at that, the Patriots, as I mentioned, they come in at number 10. They drop a spot. They went 5-2 last week. They currently sit at 11-3. The Panthers of Pelham jump up a spot. They went 3-1 last week and come in at 10-3. Saraland stays put. The Spartan last week, they went 2-2, but I believe they beat Millville Christian. I know that. I think they got beat by Fairhope 1 run.
They beat by Fairhope and Alma Bryant.
That's correct. Yeah. So they stay put at number 8 with a 9-4 record. Coleman drops a spot. Again, nothing Coleman did wrong. It's just we thought we needed to reward Oxford for a good week. Coleman comes in at 6-4 after going 2-1 last week. They split with Hoover on Friday night. Number 6, Spain Park, they drop a spot from 5 to 6. And again, nothing disrespectful towards the Jaguars. They have really got that ship rolling in the right direction. They currently sit at 8-6. The Yellow Jackets of Oxford, we talked about them. They went 3-1 this week. Oxford currently sits at 9-6. Austin, they beat Thompson. I know that.
No, they lost to Thompson, beat Bob Jones.
That's right. Yeah.
Beat Alexandria in the county championship and then beat Jacksonville.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. They got beat by Thompson, but beat Bob Jones. So Oxford comes in at number 5. At number 4, Helena, they drop a spot. They went 1-2 last week, but I know they beat Hoover 1-0. And then I think, I can't remember. It all starts
to Oak Mountain.
Yeah. The Huskies lost to Oak Mountain. And they drop a spot from 3 to 4 with a record of 8-6. Mountain Brook jumps up a spot after going 3-1 on the week. They went 3-1. They were at the Battle of the Beach in Mississippi. Their lone loss was to a highly ranked Catholic Baton Rouge team out of Louisiana, a perennial top 5 team in the state there in Louisiana. Dropping from 1 to 2 is Hartselle. Hartselle is at 7-4 after going 0-1 this week, and that lone loss was to Hazel Green, a team that we will talk about in just a second. But again, Hartselle drops from number 1 to number 2 again, and it's more of a reward for Chelsea. The Hornets went 4-0 this week. They currently sit at 11-6 and have played an extremely hard schedule, just like you could say that pretty much for everybody in that top 10. But Chelsea has been at number 2 pretty much all year. They finally take over the top spot this week after going 4-0, and they come in with a record of 11-6. Some of the teams that are outside the top 10, most of these are pretty much the same as last year. Athens, the Golden Eagles, come in at 8-2 and have beaten some good teams, including James Clemens. Gardendale is at 6-7, again playing a formidable schedule. Gulf Shores is at 7-6. And there are probably a lot of teams outside the top 10 that could say, man, we deserve to be ranked. And that's a fair statement. But I'm going to tell you this, there's one team that's coming that you better keep eyes on, and that's the Trojans of Hazel Green. They have really run off some impressive wins of late. Hazel Green got off to a slow start. I forget their record early, but they were struggling along. I think they were 3-4 at one point. I know that's what they were. They were at 3-4. They currently sit at 9-7. It was a team that I saw last week, was really impressed with them. But keep Hazel Green in your sights, because that team is coming in 6A, could very well be ranked this week. Simply just fell short. There's only 10 spots. The Golden Gophers of Hueytown continue to pile up impressive wins. They currently sit at 10-7. Northridge at 6-5. Southside, another team that has every right to think, man, we should be ranked. Maybe they should. Southside comes in with an impressive 12-2 record. Spanish Fort, the Toros, are at 6-7. Stanhope Elmore at 9-3. A really impressive.
They're another team that's quietly putting together a really strong start to the season.
You are correct. I was just about to say that. And then rounding us out on teams to keep an eye on right outside the top 10, the Indians of Wetumpka went 5-1 this week and sit at 12-4. So I'm going to go back and say the same thing I said earlier. I think this is the deepest class in the state, man. I mean, there are legitimately teams outside the top 10 there that have a case for being ranked. And again, it'll all play out on the field. So Austin, you can wrap us up in 7A.
Jumping into Class 7A, we have a little bit of movement. We have one new team back in the top 10 this week, and that's a team who started off in the preseason poll. They've made their way back in. We'll get to them here in a minute. Starting off at number 10 is Tuscaloosa County. They stay put this week. They went 1-2 this past week. They pushed their record to 9-6. And these, we spent probably 45 minutes going back and forth between these. Not as much to the 8 spot, but the number 9 and number 10 spot, because you had a couple teams outside the top 10 that we were obviously looking at potentially getting ranked, but ultimately settled with Tuscaloosa County and Hoover keeping both of these teams in. So like I mentioned, Tuscaloosa County is 9-6. Hoover went 1-2 on the week. They're sit at 5-9. No, that's not obviously not a pretty record, but we still think Hoover is really talented. They split with Coleman, and their other loss was to was it Thompson? Was it Thompson? Was it?
No, because that was rain shortened. Give me just a second, I'll pull it up.
I forget who it is.
Yeah.
And then at number 8 is Hillcrest Tuscaloosa, the team.
They hit Helena and got beat 1-0.
That's right.
Yeah.
At number 8 is Hillcrest Tuscaloosa, the team who makes their way back in this week. In this week's update, the Patriots went 5-0 this past week, highlighted by 2 wins over 5A number 1 American Christian. The Patriots sit at 9-4. At number 7, sliding down 1 spot this week, is Fairhope. The Pirates went 3-0 this past week, but slide down 1 spot, more so due to the fact of the week that Enterprise, or not even the week, just the season that Enterprise has had. We felt we had to reward the Wildcats, who come in at number 6, Enterprise at number 6. They go 5-0 this past week, playing in the Terry Sykes tournament down in Troy. They pushed their record to 12-0. Have played a quality schedule and have obviously won all their games. So we want to continue to reward them. So they jump up 2 spots from number 8 to number 6. Sliding down 1 spot this week is Central Phoenix City. The Red Devils went 4-1. Had some strong wins. Dropped their one loss was to Alberta, like we said a couple classifications ago. So the Red Devils coming at number 5. And number 4, sliding down 2 spots this week, is Thompson. The Warriors sit at 11-6. They went 2-2 this past week. Kind of a mixed bag this week. I know early in the week they lost to Chilton County. I think they gave up 4 or 5 runs in the 7th. They beat they beat Oxford, lost to Bob Jones.
Let's see. This week Thompson, they played Hoover. They were up 15-5 and rains came, and that was in the 3rd inning. So we don't think that was a complete game. They lost to Chilton County 8-4, beat Calera 6-3, lost to Bob Jones 4-1, and beat Oxford 6-1. So yeah, mixed bag there for the Warriors, but yeah.
At number 3, jumping up 2 spots this week, a team that I saw a couple days ago in the Birmingham area. That's Vestavia Hills, and we said it coming into the season. Had them pegged at number 10 in the preseason poll. We think that their roster, especially their lineup, is as good as anybody's in the state. Division I prospects, players going to high-level JUCOs. We think Vestavia Hills, once again, after winning the state championship 2 years ago, have a chance to be one of the main contenders once again, but going to have to, like every year, having to play in those tough Birmingham areas. We'll see how it shapes out, but they've gotten off to a good start the first few weeks of the season. The Rebels sit at 9-3 and went 3-0 this past week. They beat Spain Park and then swept Gardendale on Saturday, so they sit at 9-3. Jumping up 1 spot this week is Bob Jones. The Patriots with 2-1 to push their record to 11-4. I know one of their wins was against Thompson on the road on Saturday, and then dropped the game to Oxford on Saturday as well. Forget their other win, but they sit at 11-4, and then staying at the top.
They just took the lead 7-6 in the bottom of the 6 right now. So
we better hurry up and get through these. And number 1, staying at the top spot this week, the another undefeated team in Class 7A, the Hewitt-Trussville Huskies, pushed their record to 12-0 after going perfect 3-0 this past week. So the Huskies stay at the top spot, and we'll continue to see how the rest of 7A shapes out here over the next few weeks as we get closer into area play. Looking at some teams just outside the top 10, Auburn sits at 8-6. Daphne is at 6-8. Dothan sits at 10-4. Grissom is the one team to drop out this week. They sit at 8-5 after going 0-3 this past week. James Clemens is also at 8-5, and then Oak Mountain was probably that other team just outside the top 10 that had a real chance to make their way at the number 9 or number 10 spot. Ultimately, we went with Tuscaloosa County and Hoover, but Oak Mountain's really seemed to play some really good baseball over the past couple of weeks, and will be a team to watch in the Birmingham area, just to add to another team to the Birmingham area. So,
yeah.
We'll go ahead and get into our Power 25 poll. And before we get into it, and I think there was some confusion last week, I think, on our Facebook post. These are top 25 teams, regardless of classification. And these are AHSAA teams.
That's correct. Yeah.
No AI. None of these are AISA teams. This is strictly AHSAA based. This is a top 25 poll, like I said, regardless of classification. Starting off at number 25, we have Oak Mountain, who we just talked about, just outside the 7A top 10. They make their way inside the top 25 of the Power 25 poll. They sit at 9-5. Tuscaloosa County sits at 9-6. They come in at number 24. 3 teams sliding up 1 spot this week. You have Glenwood at number 23, sliding up 1 spot. Prattville at number 22, sliding up 1 spot. And then Faith Academy stays put at number 21 this week. Glenwood is 9-3. Prattville Christian's 12-0. And then Faith Academy is 7-2. Madison Academy jumps up 2 spots this week to number 20. They sit at 10-2. Hoover slides down to number 19 this week. They sit at 5-9. And number 18 is Hillcrest Tuscaloosa, jumping up 7 spots for number 28, from number 25 to number 18. The Patriots sit at 9-4. And number 17, jumping up 1 spot, is Saraland. The Spartans sit at 9-4. Springville, team that you saw, number 2 in Class 5A, they jump up 3 spots this week to number 16. They sit at 10-1. Coleman stays put at number 15. They sit at 6-4. Spain Park also stays put at number 14. They sit at 8-6. And number 13 is Oxford, sliding up 4 spots after a strong week of play. The Yellow Jackets sit at 9-6 and coming at number 13. Sliding down a few spots this week is Helena. They slide down from number 9 to number 12. The Huskies sit at 8-6. And number 11, staying put at number 11, is Fairhope. The Pirates sit at 8-4 after going 3-0 this past week. And number 10, sliding down a good bit. We talked about them in Class 5A, went 0-3 this past week, but still think that they're one of the better teams in the state of Alabama. American Christian comes in at number 10, sitting at 13-5. Mountain Brook jumps up 1 spot to number 9. They sit at 9-4. Enterprise makes a strong jump from number 13 to number 8. They sit at 12-0. And number 7 is Hartselle, sliding down a couple spots. They sit at 7-4. Jumping up 2 spots this week is Chelsea, the newly ranked number 1 team in Class 6A. The Hornets coming at number 6 with an 11-6 record. Jumping up 1 spot this week is Central Phoenix City. They sit at number 5 and sit with a 12-5 record. Sliding down 1 spot is Thompson from number 3 to number 4. The Warriors sit at 11-6. Vestavia Hills jumps up from number 7 to number 3 after going 3-0 this past week. They sit at 9-3. And then jumping up 2 spots from number 4 to number 2 is Bob Jones. The Patriots sit at 11-4. And Hewitt-Trussville stays at the top spot, number 1 in 7A and number 1 in the Power 25 poll. The Hewitt-Trussville Huskies sit at the top spot for the 3rd week in a row with a perfect 12-0 record. So that'll do it for our Class 7A through 1A polls and our Power 25 polls. I'll pass it back to you, see if we got any questions, or if not, we'll go ahead and close this thing out.
Yep, absolutely. Just a couple things that we always do to wrap this up. Again, look for later today on our social media channels. These classification polls and Power 25 will be released. Again, for listening, you got the first crack at hearing who's ranked where. Tomorrow, we'll be announcing our Mizuno Pitcher and Player of the Week. We appreciate those coaches that have reached out to nominate players for that. That's getting harder and harder every week. On Wednesday, we'll be releasing our Diamond Notes. Our Diamond Notes are guys that were recommended, for Player of the Week, but maybe just got beat out. We like to, give those guys some publicity, guys that are deserving of being in our Diamond Notes. That'll be coming out Wednesday. And then daily, and not necessarily daily, but as we get out to see games, we will be updating our scout blog, for whenever it's updated. That'll probably be, several different times throughout the week, as it was last week. We mentioned the number of players we had last week was just an absurd amount of players in that scout blog that we saw throughout the week. So again, be looking out for that as we move forward. Next week, our podcast will be at the same time on 10 o'clock next Monday, March the 7th. And as always, and wrapping it up with this, on our website, prepbaseballreport.com/Alabama, up on the top under the AHSAA tab, you can click there, and everything relative to the high school season, including rankings, including the scout blog, including the team previews, everything that we've done can be found under one click of the mouse there on prepbaseballreport.com/Alabama. So, man, that will get us through this. If I've got 50 seconds to end us in less than an hour here.
I think Twitter's been having issues this morning. I want to say Twitter, I don't know if it's down, but mine's definitely slow. I think we've got 836 listeners. I don't know if that's got anything to do with it, but
yeah, my Twitter's been
able to play that.
Mine's been messed up too, so I'm sure that's pretty across the board for Twitter, or X if you want to call it. But again, thank you for jumping on. We appreciate you paying attention. Appreciate you your interest in listening. One more pub for All Things Baseball podcast. Austin and I'll be jumping on that later today with those guys. You can search for that in their YouTube channel. Again, that's All Things Baseball podcast. They'll be talking to us about the state, the state of Alabama and what prep baseball offers. But for Austin Sharp, the Alabama Scouting Director, I am Deep South Supervisor David Sharp. As always, we appreciate you jumping on. And if we don't see you this week at the ballpark, we'll see you next week. Thanks for jumping on.